Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this very short video I am going to show the common links and the common flaws to the Zeitgeist Movement, the Thrive Movement, and conspiracy theorists in general, like Alex Jones and David Icke and Jesse Ventura, just to name a few. So if you like any one of these movements or people, or you don't like any one of these movements or people, you're going to love this video, because I'm going to show the common links and the common flaws, and most importantly, I'm going to show you the pieces to the puzzle that these guys are missing. So before we look at the specifics to these movements and people, I'd like to mention one thing, and that is that the common links and common flaws to these three main groups I just mentioned is the same flaw that almost all of us has. And there are four common links that we all have: two things we don't have that we need, and two things that we have that we don't need. And the two things we have that we need is knowledge that we're missing, which is lost knowledge, and the coherent sunlight energy that brings our planet to life that should be stored in the nucleus of our cells. We're missing that also. In place of the knowledge we need, the lost knowledge, we have false knowledge. And with this false knowledge, we're making five main mistakes, where the fifth mistake destroys this sunlight energy by 83%, and the first mistake destroys this sunlight energy by 100%. And the very first mistake we made created two conditions I coined: hyperclonic tension and hypoheliosis. Now we have two things that we shouldn't have. That's false knowledge and a cesspool inside of us. That's the hyperclonic tension. But most importantly, we're disconnected. There's something we're missing. We're destroying our source for our sixth sense, or our spidey sense. It's called a biophoton. And we're supposed to store this coherent sunlight energy in the nucleus of our cells, and that's what allows all of our cells to communicate in the sense that it's all one with everything. So the piece of the puzzle everyone is missing is we don't know, we're disconnected. And as a result, everything we do is a distraction. Everything we do is a distraction unless we are also getting reconnected. Obviously, we need to be distracted and work downstream to an extent. But we need to go upstream and get reconnected, and when we do that, we're going to find that most of those other problems aren't even going to exist. So let's take a quick look at the Zeitgeist Movement. The Zeitgeist Movement understands that we have six systems, and the sickest of all the systems is our monetary system. And they came to a conclusion that many people have had before, and that is if we just got rid of our monetary system, we would have all these other problems. So they believe the solution is to have a resource-based economy. And that's not entirely right, because that's another effect. So they're focusing on an effect, trying to fix the system. That's not the solution. You don't fix systems, you fix the individuals. You get reconnected. And if all of us were reconnected, we wouldn't have an exchange economy. We'd have a different mentality. We'd have a gift mentality. We would have a resource-based economy. So the solution is not to have a resource-based economy. The solution is, let's satisfy all of our needs. Let's not make these five main mistakes. Let's not get disconnected and be reconnected, or connected to everything around us, and then we would have a resource-based economy. So they're right in realizing that a resource-based economy will solve a lot of problems, but they don't understand, well, how do we create the resource-based economy? That's the piece of the puzzle they don't understand. They don't know we're making these five main mistakes. They don't know we're disconnected. And then when we look at the Thrive Movement, they looked at 12 major sectors of human endeavor, and they investigated it, and they followed the money, and they came to the conclusion that there is a small group of families that are controlling and running everything. And now their solution is, well, we can solve our problems if we just got rid of the corrupt money. You see, this small group of people, these small families, the small group of families aren't any smarter than us. They aren't any better. They just are the ones playing this money scam where they're printing up the money, and it's like a big monopoly game to them, where all they have to do is just keep printing the money and they can buy everything up. And that's exactly what's happening right now. Look around the world, what's happening? Why are our economies collapsing? It's designed that way. So the conspiracy theorists, the people like Alex Jones and David Icke and Jesse Ventura, they're out there screaming at everybody going, look at what's going on. Why can't you guys wake up? Well, you know, they came out with a study back in October 9th of 2011 that showed that people shut off their frontal lobe so they can go to denial. That's how we have a mental processing error where we just don't process information. So even though we hear information, it goes in one ear and out the other. So what happens is the vast majority of us shut off our frontal lobe. We don't want to know we're living in hell. We don't want to know we've got sick psychopaths that are tricking our so-called experts and misdirecting everybody. It's just a one big con. So most people don't want to wake up to that reality. And then we got conspiracy theorists screaming at everybody saying, come on, wake up. Stop shutting off your frontal lobe. Well, I'm going to scream at you conspiracy theorists. You're shutting off your frontal lobe too because you're making these 5 mistakes. Or most of them. And you shut off your frontal lobe to that aspect of it. So one of the main goals of this short video is to unite all of us, to unite all these movements and realize that we are the solution. There is no such thing as a 99% or 1%, even though those numbers aren't quite the right percentages. But the point is, these psychopaths are a reflection of us. There's only one way to defeat the psychopaths, and that's to realize they are a reflection of us. So when we make mistakes, or everything we do rather, affects us, and then those effects are recorded in the condition of all 4 of our current status factors, especially the condition of our body. And then it's the condition of our 4 current status factors that determine everything else. So if we don't like what we got, we have to realize everything we do affects us. It's going to affect our behavior. And with every type of behavior, you have extremes. So in our case, we have psychopaths on one end and saints on the other. Statistically, we can put our behavior in a bell-shaped curve. If you're not familiar with that, just Google that real quick. And with a bell-shaped curve, let's say the classic example is IQ, where 96% of the population is between 80 and 130. And then 2% are above 130. Those are the geniuses. And then we have those below 80 that are mentally challenged. And this bell can be applied to our behavior where we have psychopaths on one end. That might represent 1 to 5% based on some studies that have been put out. And then we have the saints on the other. And the key here is that none of us can relate to the edges of the bell. And the solution isn't to cut off the edges of the bell. We can't do that. If we don't like the edges of the bell, if we don't like the extreme part of our behavior, then we have to realize that we all have to change collectively. We all have to become the best that we can be. And right now, most of us are not willing and able to do that, which is why I perfected a 3-step process to solve most of our problems. There's only one thing we have to do, and that's to be the best that we can be, satisfy all of our essential needs, and in the process, we'll get reconnected. And if we're not satisfying our needs, if we're not getting reconnected, we're disconnected, and everything else is a distraction. And once again, we have to look at some things and do damage control and work downstream to an extent, but we need to go upstream and figure out why all this is happening. And it's all because of us. But right now, none of us are in a position to understand what we're doing and what we need to do because we don't know what we're missing. We're not going to think it's a fair trade. We have way too many references that support our belief system and our way of life that's going to make the solution to our problems sound too good to be true and something no one's going to want to do. So the very first of this 3-step process I perfected addresses the willingness issue. It allows enough of us to do something so we can get everyone's attention. And once we do that, things will change so fast we won't even believe it. Of course, the first step is only something we do on a temporary basis. Once again, that makes it more attractive. And then once we see what we're missing, we have a brand new reference and we can challenge all those old references. Then we can correct these 5 mistakes on a permanent basis. That's the second step. And that's what's keeping us from being able to be the best that we can be. because most of us don't know we're making these mistakes, especially the first mistake, which is actually the fall of mankind. The fall of mankind occurred when we destroyed a nutrient that we store in the nucleus of our cells. I coined that condition hypoheliosis. We're disconnected. And until you get reconnected, you're not going to be in a position to evaluate what we're doing and what we need to do. So the first thing you have to do is get reconnected. And the first of my 3-step process does that about 10 times faster than any other method. In fact, it's the #1 way they heal in Germany. And Dr. Pop knows this bumps up these biophotons higher than anything else. So that's enough to get you going in this video. In the next video, we'll talk more about the first of my 3-step process and about all of our needs that we have to satisfy.